Have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant turning, has to put it up with the buzzer. Banks it! Oh! He banks it!
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA. I'm coming back at you right here on this Tuesday evening. You guys will be seeing this. This is going to be a pre-recorded episode, so don't think it's live. It's going to be airing live, but I won't be keeping up with the comments, obviously, because it's pre-recorded. But definitely enjoy this episode. Yes, this will be aired Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., so if you're seeing this, you are tuning in. Thank you so much. With that being said, what we're going to get into today, as you know, always sticking it with the NBA across the board. Obviously, pinpointing on the Sixers. We know what happened last night, Monday night, that is, against the Denver Nuggets. We're going to talk a little bit about how the Sixers blew that big lead, the bench struggles, obviously. We'll get into all of that. As well as, you know, just as we always do, taking a quick trip around the NBA, covering the latest topics. Obviously, Cat had a monster night, but there was quite a few monster nights. Maybe not 60 burgers, but we had quite a few 40-point burgers. So we'll talk about a little bit of those. And then we'll also just talk a little bit about Greg Popovich. Obviously, he had a big accolade he achieved recently. And then just a little bit more, you know, just little stories across the NBA as we get ready for the postseason. There's a lot of buildup that's going on right now as we get closer. We're under that 20-game mark. A lot of teams are under the 15-game mark even. So not a lot of regular season basketball to be played. Got a lot of headlines that are creating the narratives or the agendas for the playoffs, right? And then obviously, we will talk about the game Wednesday evening, preview that, Cavs versus Sixers. The Cavs are hosting the Sixers in Cleveland. We'll talk a little bit about that, give predictions as well. Before we get into, obviously, the content, always have to shout out DSM Media. That is who Scotty Talks NBA is brought to you by. So make sure you're following DSM Media on all social media networks. You can find DSM Media on Twitter at DSM_media. You can find DSM Media on YouTube. Just type in DSM Media, look for the logo. You can find us on Instagram at DSM.DoSomethingMajor and TikTok, DSM Media. Straightforward. It's spelled out exactly like that. You can find us on TikTok. We're always pumping content out daily on all the social media platforms. And then, of course, if you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure you're hitting the like button, commenting, engaging, letting us know how you're feeling about the Sixers in the NBA season so far. But then on top of that, if you're not watching on YouTube, head on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, make sure you're getting included and engaging in the comments. Not every show is going to be pre-recorded, so we will get you guys involved in Scotty Talks NBA week to week. Also, a little bit more of house cleaning. Want to apologize. I know the last two Sundays, I said I'm doing my show Sundays and Wednesdays. I'm sticking to that, I promise you. Last two Sundays, I've had some really busy times. I'm finishing my winter semester of graduate school, so you know we're in finals week this week. Last week and the week before, just kind of preparing, getting all of my projects ready. You know, 3 10-page papers that I got to do over the next week and get them submitted. But aside from that, I did have an uncle who passed away in the family as well. So that's what cost me this past Sunday. It created a busy weekend for me. But nonetheless, we will be coming at you this Sunday at our regularly scheduled time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sunday morning. And then it will continue on that path Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to continue to do that consistently, because I want to make sure all my viewers know where to find my show. I know I've been all over the place recently, so I want to create a consistent schedule. Make sure I'm showing up in the same spot, same time each week. You guys can find me here every time. So with that being said, let's get into it. Obviously, the Sixers took a miserable loss. I'll call it that. It was a miserable loss. Now, there's degrees to miserable losses, right? Like that loss to Boston before Harden was playing. That was a miserable loss, but that was a miserable loss to the most extreme point. As far as this loss last night, and you could throw the Brooklyn Nets in there with that Celtics game. That Brooklyn Nets game was on another level of miserableness. But as far as this Nuggets game, this one was miserable because it's concerning. And, those blowouts, when the Sixers are shooting 30% or 25% from the field or 20% from the three-point line and the other team's shooting 50+% from the three-point line, 50+% from the field, you can throw those games out. Sixers aren't always going to shoot that bad. Other opposing team isn't always going to shoot that good. Games like last night, they concern me because that's a realistic loss. They blew that game. And it's a very consistent reason that we're starting to see as to why the Sixers will lose games going forward or what will cause them to lose games, right? Their starting five is ridiculous. We know this. I mean, Harden's had his shooting struggles. They kind of went away last night. He didn't take a ton of shots, but definitely didn't struggle from the field. Shot over 50% from the field, 25% for the three, 1 for 4 from the three-point line last night. But nonetheless, shooting struggles weren't as apparent in that game as they were against Orlando and against Brooklyn. But you look down the line, Tobias Harris, he's a guy who can go out there and get you 15 to 20. Tyrese Maxey, 15 to 20. Embiid, 25 to 30, right? Harden's borderline of walking 20-point triple-double. So, you got weapons there. You got Matisse, who is an all-defensive team first-teamer, right? So, what's the problem, right? And it was very obvious. I know everybody that's watching right now, if you're a Sixers fan, if you've been watching the Sixers, you know the answer. Why did the Sixers lose this game against Denver? The bench. I mean, it's very simple. The bench. It's been like this all season. And, George Niang has been the bright spot on the bench. He makes up for all the lack that the bench has, right? He's the only valuable piece right now from the bench. Shake was working himself there, but, Shake, I don't know what's up with him. I just don't even know what to make of him. 2 years ago, I would have told you Shake was going to become this 6th man of the year candidate. 2 years later, here we are. I don't even know if Shake is worthy of a rotational spot. Danny Green last night, 0 for 5, I think. Couldn't hit the side of a barn coming off the finger laceration, the finger cut that kept him out for 2 games. But can't hit the side of the barn. He's not as good defensively as he's been in the past, right? He's getting older. He's had hamstring issues. He can't stress his body out too much more. He's getting to that age. Paul Millsap didn't get any burn last night. He didn't look very good at the backup 5, and obviously they're not going to try him at the backup 4 because they operate with Niang in that role. Who else? DeAndre Jordan. Doc Rivers, don't let Doc Rivers fool you. He says DeAndre Jordan's been great. I tell you, the complete opposite. He's been fucking terrible. Charles Bassey, give him a fucking shot. I'm so fucking tired of saying it. Give Charles Bassey the shot. He's the only one this season that has looked worthy of minutes as a backup center, aside from Andre Drummond when he was on the Sixers. And it's something I hit on last week, but Andre Drummond wasn't a realistic backup center option. That was pure luck. That was pure strike of gold. He didn't have any other suitors that were more beneficial to him in the offseason. So he had to come to Philly, wanted to, be coached by Doc Rivers and play that backup center role to Joel Embiid. So we ship him to Brooklyn. That's fine. It's not, like I said, it's not a realistic backup center option. He's way too good to be a backup center in the NBA. And we see that now. He's starting with Brooklyn. He's doing some good work with Brooklyn. So my point here is, obviously you lose Drummond. That is what it is. You kind of had to take that loss. With DeAndre Jordan, we don't have to force this. Now's the time to experiment. And I don't understand. Charles Bassey's been spending all of this time on the G League roster with the Blue Coats in Delaware. And, Paul Reed will get inserted in the games at the end of games when games are out of hand and stuff like that. Why not give these guys a real shot? If there's one thing, right? Like right now, my thing with DeAndre Jordan, he's supposed to be like Lob City. He's supposed to catch oops. He's supposed to get bored. He's supposed to play defense. He's not catching many oops. When he gets fouled, he's a liability at the line. And he's not a good defender, period. He's not a good defender, guys. Boogie Cousins outworked him by a mile last night. It was fucking ridiculous. But he's not a good defender. The one thing I can guarantee you Paul Reed and Charles Bassey are good at is defense. Charles Bassey specifically, he's gonna be that anchor in the middle. He can block shots. Paul Reed can even space the floor. We've seen what he's been able to do in the G League as far as winning the MVP. You got to give these young guys a shot. Now, we're to the point in the season, however many games left, 15, 14, whatever the case may be, we're to the point in the season where now it's risky, right? It's risky to throw Bassey in there. You don't expect him to get acclimated within 14 games, right? He's not a veteran caliber player like DeAndre Jordan that's been around, knows all the different systems of the NBA, who's played with Doc Rivers before. So you put us in between a rock and a hard place with the way you structured it and given these guys chances where Paul Reed, Charles Bassey, they should have got looks a long time ago. There's been games where Andre Drummond had missed time when he was part of the team. They should have got more looks then, but they didn't. Even brought in Willie Cauley-Stein at some point, taking away minutes. Why? What upside does Willie Cauley-Stein have that Charles Bassey doesn't? That doesn't make sense, Doc. I don't know if it's Doc. I don't know if it's, higher ups in the organization that's controlling roster moves, roster fluctuation. Same with Jaden Springer. Guys, we need perimeter defenders. If Danny Green is looking the way that he looks, why can't Jaden Springer get a look over him? I get it. He's a rookie. He was like borderline a second-round pick. I get it. He's athletic. He plays defense. What else do you need him to do? It's not like Danny Green is shooting the ball well. He's not. I mean, there's so many, different routes. Isaiah Joe, we've been waiting for him to get some different looks throughout the season. He's not getting it. But the bench, I haven't even gotten to the actual numbers of the bench yet. That's how frustrated I am with this unit. And obviously, Korkmaz hasn't been better. I told you Shake's been spotty. Who is even left? Like, you know what I mean? Like, who is left? And that's where I'm at with this team. So let's just compare the bench units from last night. And we're going to talk about Jokic and Embiid, obviously. Like that matchup, we know what we were walking into, and it didn't fail. It didn't disappoint in a sense, right? But I want to talk about these bench units. So we had the Sixers bench unit led by George Niang. Let's start there. George Niang, 8 points, 2 for 12 from the field. 2 for 10 from the three-point line. And George Niang was a team worst, game worst, minus 19. That never happens. That never happens. George is not a bad basketball player. I'm not coming out here and saying that. He had a blunder at the end of the game where he missed the potentially game-winning three or game-tying three or, game-winning three, I think it actually was. No, they were actually down by 3, excuse me. So the game-tying 3 gets his own rebound and then throws up like a little teardrop, which was 2 points. It wouldn't have got us to win anyways. But and people were killing George for this, for lack of awareness in the moment. Guys, there's 3-4 seconds on the clock left in the game. And you just want George Niang to see the entire floor as he gathers a rebound and rushes around. I get it. It's situational awareness. It would have been a miraculous play for George Niang to get that rebound, immediately see Tyrese Maxey open over there on the wing, and get it to him with enough time for Tyrese Maxey to get a shot off. So it would have taken immaculate IQ, immaculate awareness in order to think that quickly, make the, not only think about it, but then get it done. If you haven't played basketball before, which, anybody that's throwing Niang up on the cross about that play, you haven't, because you haven't had to make decisions split second like that. And you would understand how difficult of a thought process in order to make that happen, how difficult that would be. So just wanted to start with that. Start with Niang. His worst game as a Sixer, I would imagine. I'm just taking a stab there, I guess. 2 for 10 is just disgusting. 20% from three. He's a 40% three-point shooter. Bench as a whole for the Sixers, 14 points, eight of which were George Niang's. They were 4 for 24 from the field. That's 16.7% field goal shooting percentage on that bench unit for the Sixers. And I believe, only 4 guys came off the bench. It was Shake, it was DeAndre Jordan, it was Niang, and let me take a look here. I don't want to get this wrong. It was Shake, it was Niang, and it was Monday night. Sixers, Nuggets. Shake, Niang, who am I forgetting? Danny Green, my goodness. Yeah, I just talked about him. He was 0 for 5 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3. So, yes, Danny Green, Shake Milton, George Niang, and then DeAndre Jordan were the only 4 players off the bench. Shot a combined 4 for 24 from the field, 16.7% field goal percentage, 14 points as a group, 3 for 13 from the three-point line, 23.1% three-point shooting percentage. Now, is that a bad night for the bench? Obviously, right? Obviously. Now, when we look at the numbers from the Nuggets bench, you're going to see how, not bad. It was a terrible night for our bench unit. There's a reason Niang was a minus 19 in the plus-minus column. Denver bench last night, led by Bones Highland, my man. Shout out to Bones Highland. This man, cold, ice cold. I walked out for the fourth quarter, take a piss. I was drinking hella beers. Had to go take a piss in the fourth quarter. Come back. This man had made 3 threes in a row. Nuggets had taken the lead by 3. I'm like, what the fuck? Mind you, yes, I didn't even mention that. Yes, me and Dylan from DSM Media, we went to the game yesterday, so we were in person for this one, which made it even more miserable. But the seats were fucking awesome. We sat in section 106, row 7, I think. No, row 12. Seats were fucking awesome. We were right behind the home bench, actually. So we were right behind the home bench, the Sixers side there. Awesome seats, but such a disappointing finish. But back to my point, Bones Highland, incredible. 21 points, 4 for 9 from the three-point line. Completely iced the game. Right? So Denver bench as a whole, 48 points. Let's start that. 48 points. And this is crazy because this is something me and Dylan talked about last week, and he made a big spiel, and I was failing him at the time, obviously. Everything's easier to think through in hindsight. But, talking about how good the starting lineup is, if they account for close to 100 points, what are you really asking the bench of? Yeah, you're right. You don't have to ask our bench of much, per se. Our starters were all pluses in the plus-minus column last night, for instance. But when you have other opposing benches that can drop 48 points on you in a given game, and mind you, the Nuggets, part of their bench is actually in their starting lineup. So these bench players on their bench are bottom of their bench, right? They would be the bottom of their bench if that's a fully healthy team. You got players playing in place of Jamal Murray. You got players playing in place of Michael Porter Jr. So you got bench guys in the starting lineup. So then you got the deeper bench guys on the actual bench. Those are the guys that scored 48 points against the Sixers bench last night. That's what makes it crazy. 48 points, 18 for 33 from the field. That's 54.6% from the field. Compared to 16.7% by the Sixers bench. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And then on top of it, the Nuggets shot 8 for 19 from the three-point line as a bench unit, 42.1%. Now, this goes back to my point, right? We talked about it at the beginning, towards the beginning of this segment. The Sixers the Sixers are interesting, right? The concerning losses, the Nets game and the Boston loss, those weren't concerning losses, right? You can kind of throw them out just due to shooting percentages, hot streak. One team's on fire, one team's extremely cold, right? But in this game, you could kind of point to the same direction, right? Maybe the Sixers bench just had a really off night. George Niang isn't going to go 2 for 12 most nights. He's usually going to hit, if he's shooting 10 threes, he's usually going to hit 3 or 4 of them, right? That's a normal game for George Niang, right? It's not a matter of them being cold. Look at this bench unit, right? Now, obviously, the numbers speak for themselves last night, but if you go back and you look at all these games of the entire season, there was a point where Shake was playing consistently. And like I said, I don't even know what to think of Shake. Maybe he is a rotational piece, a bench piece. Maybe he's not. Times he looks great. Times he looks fucking lost. So Shake, he's kind of in the middle for me. Niang's in there. That's my guy. He comes out. He gives us what he's got every night. Last night was an off night. DeAndre Jordan, like I said, I would go Charles Bassey. Cork Maz isn't touching my court. Danny Green, you got to stick with him a little bit longer. He's a veteran. He brings experience. He's a leader. And when he does shoot the ball well, maybe, get him acclimated back from the injury. Maybe he starts shooting the ball a little bit better. We need that. So I'm not going to, just throw Danny out of the rotation. I would leave him in there. But you look back on the game, after Drummond's gone, especially when Drummond's gone. But even when Drummond was here, he wasn't that great. Like he wasn't making our bench a top line bench in the NBA. But now this is like a bottom 5 bench. I mean, you talk about guys outside of Niang, none of these guys would probably be in a contending rotation. I mean, we can sit here, we can go through, however many teams that you consider contenders, we can go through their whole roster. I think you would find Danny Green, I think you would find Shake Milton, I think you would find DeAndre Jordan at the bottom of those rosters. Even in washed up town LA, the Los Angeles Lakers, DeAndre Jordan was not getting burned. So what's that tell you when that's a team that's not even in the playoff picture right now? I saw my man Vance Crew the other night. He tweeted it during the Orlando game, which I'm not even touching on the Orlando game because, 1, the shit was way too close. 2, I'm not going to give you praise for that win. Like, I'm tired of giving praise for wins that just don't even fucking matter. You went to overtime with an Orlando Magic team that hosts one of the worst, if not the worst, record in the NBA. But shout out to my man Vance for pointing this out during that game. There's teams, but including the Magic, that have one of the worst records in the NBA, where our guys on our bench unit wouldn't get in their rotation. Like, the guys on our bench unit wouldn't get in the Orlando Magic's rotation, period. The only one would be George Niang. He's the only guy coming off that bench that could potentially be a rotational bench piece on another team. And even he shouldn't be playing as much as he does. I like George Niang a lot, but when you put him out there, you have him going over 20 minutes played, that's when you start to see, reckless, drive the lane, backspin, slow ass, minivan George Niang. I ain't trying to see that. I'm trying to see spot up and shoot George Niang, gritty George Niang that plays with effort on the defensive end, George Niang that talks some shit when he hits a few threes in the game. And that's all I need to see from George Niang, straight up. But, beside the point, I'm not going to sit here and harp all night on the bench. Just wanted to point that out, the difference a week of basketball can make in the regular season of the NBA, but especially since this Harden trade, what a week a difference can make as far as competition, who you're playing, and how the team is playing and how you view this team. Last week, we would have told you, we're not that worried about the bench. We got a few pieces there, added DeAndre Jordan. Woo! This week, that's a major detractor heading into the postseason. Just a few more points before I move on here. I know I put a TikTok out on my TikTok, not on DSM's TikTok. If you want to, you can follow me on TikTok at Scotty Drown, same as my tag on Twitter. But I put a TikTok on there after the Brooklyn game because I was feeling really down. I'm not going to lie to you. I took that one hard. Took last night's hard too. you know, when you have such high expectations, high hopes for your squad, every loss is going to hurt, especially when you're playing a quality opponent. And it's going to raise question marks. It's going to raise your eyebrows a little bit, obviously, especially in a situation where we're looking at a guy that's just newly added to this roster in James Harden, right? So you're going to be overreacting all over the place over those first maybe even month or a few months, even the first season that you're playing with a new guy the caliber of James Harden on your roster. So no doubt we're going to go on a roller coaster ride throughout the rest of the regular season into the postseason, I'm sure. But three specific narratives that the Sixers are going to have to defeat in order to get where they want to get to, right? And now you can throw a fourth one in there because this bench is a whole other conversation. So let's say four narratives then, right? Four narratives, four detractors, whatever you want to call them. Number one being Doc Rivers. We know about Doc Rivers. We know the blown series leads in the playoffs. We know what happened against Atlanta last postseason, I should say, with the Sixers in his first season. We know what Doc Rivers does. Lack of adjustments, bad decisions, bad rotations, right? And overall, just lack of preparation for his teams. His teams often seem lacking of energy, lacking of effort, lacking of leadership. So that's the knock against Doc. That's number one, what the Sixers are going to have to defeat if they want to win a championship this season. Because the reason I say this season, I'm not 100% sure that Doc Rivers is going to be here after this season, depending how this playoffs plays out. That's a whole other combo, though. Number two, Joel Embiid. He gets this rap, selfish player, lack of leadership, body language, lack of conditioning. This all it all fits into the detractor of the doubted side of Joel Embiid. Obviously, we know what type of talent Embiid is. He's an MVP candidate, and it seems to be perennial at this point, right? That last season and this season, he's stepped his game up to that level. But there's this underlying narrative of Embiid where he's a ball hog. Once the ball goes into his hands, he's a black hole. Teammates around him can't get in rhythms because, the ball's always in his hands. I saw some narratives after the Nets game, specifically 15 free throws in that first half, took the ball out of the rest of his teammates' hands early, didn't allow them to establish a rhythm. So while I don't believe all of that about Embiid, there's a little truth to it. Could, 15 free throws, Embiid slowing the game down at the free throw line, could that be a detractor to his teammates' rhythm? I can side with that. I can agree with that. I can see where that comes from. I played basketball. I know what rhythm and chemistry looks like and how it works. Do I think he's a locker room cancer? Do I think he's like this, bad leader? No. I've seen specific moments where, yeah, he holds his team accountable, but yeah, he builds his team right up. He's done it with Maxey. He's done it with Thibault. He's done it with Harden now. He's done it with Tobias. He's done it with George Niang. He's done it with all of his teammates. He did it with Ben. Even though Ben wasn't trying to hear it, he did it with Ben. He rose Ben up to the fan base because the fan base is going to listen to Joel Embiid. Ben just didn't follow through with his teammates after they showed that support. So I'm not going to really entertain it, but it is a narrative that the Sixers will have to defeat, similar to what Giannis had to do last postseason. Embiid has to prove that he can be the same guy he is in the regular season in the postseason. And then number three, James Harden. It's borderline the same conversation I'm having about Embiid and that detractor. James Harden's more so lies along the lines of, you just got to be able to hit a goddamn shot in the playoffs, bro. Like that Nets game was concerning. Orlando was concerning. But I also get that players go through shooting slumps. But we can't just sit here and ignore the lack of success James Harden has had in the playoffs as far as winning games and leading teams in crucial moments. So, I think all three of those first three narratives that the Sixers are going to have to defeat if they want to win a championship this season, I think they all fit into the same, like the same kind of motto or the same idea, right? They don't show up in big games. That's the problem, right? Like that's my overlying, that's the gist of my first three narratives, detractors that the Sixers are going to have to overcome in order to win a championship, they just don't show up in big moments. And that's concerning. That's a concern. Number 4 is obviously the bench. I didn't have that on my original list of 3. After last night, that's a major fucking concern. It's a major detractor. So the Sixers are going to be, it's going to be a roller coaster ride the rest of this season. I don't know what the fuck is going to happen. And I really don't even know what to expect at this point. They're the 3rd seed in the East. I would imagine you stay there or you go lower, because I'm not going up to the 2 or the 1 seed to play Brooklyn. Am I going to actively try to lose? No, but I'm going to be resting Harden and Embiid down the stretch. And if we blow a few games down the stretch, then it is what it is. I'm not playing Brooklyn first round. Fuck that. Why do we have to do that? People call us scared. You can call us what we want. That's stupid. You can call us scared. I'll call us smart. That's where I'll leave that. Just a few more points from the Nuggets Sixers game last night. One, why is Niang out shooting Tobias and James Harden? Tobias had 9 shots last night. James Harden had 11 shots last night. George Niang had 12. Should never happen. Should never fucking happen. Period. Harden has to attack more. I know we're trying. I know he's trying, not we. Harden is trying to find a balance of what this team needs and what he needs to contribute night to night. The honest truth behind that answer is that it's going to change night to night. But overall, I need Harden to be aggressive. He needs to attack more. But when I say be aggressive, attack more, you have to do it smarter. Pull up for the floater more often. Pull up for the mid-range jumper more often. He's driving in a lane. Sometimes he's taking 3 guys to the rack. Yeah, he's getting fouled, but the refs aren't going to honor it. And he's going to realize really quick, playing in a Sixers uniform, the NBA and the refs, they don't fuck with you. And when you step on the court, they ain't your friends. I promise you. Doc Rivers, I know we talk about him a lot. Adjustments, lack thereof, lack of preparation. He needs to be able to switch up the approach. Switch it up from time to time. Stop being so goddamn predictable. Sometimes, for the first half of a quarter, you can run the offense through Tobias. For the second half of a quarter, you can run it through Harden. For the second quarter, the first half of the second quarter, you can run it through Embiid. Blah, blah, blah. Down the stretch, you can go down the line. Maxi, pick and rolls, high screens. If Harden's getting double teamed at the top of the lane, pass the ball out of it. There's so many options. Put the ball in Maxi's hands more so that Harden can't get double teamed at the top of the lane. Shout out to my man Vance for bringing up that point on Twitter earlier. There's a lot of different options. And, I've talked about this earlier. It was something I heard on Duncan Robinson's podcast, and it really stuck with me because smart coaches will think like this and they will understand this. The Sixers are so goddamn predictable. So predictable. So they need to switch it up. They need to switch up the approach from night to night, quarter to quarter, play to play, series to series, possession to possession. Switch it the fuck up, Doc. Stop doing the same shit. The other thing, why are people saying that Jokic outplayed Embiid? That's something we're going to crush right now. That didn't fucking happen. You watched that game last night with your own eyes, and this is what I've been saying to Nuggets fans for a while. And yes, I have been watching Jokic play the second half of the season. Like I said, he's a phenomenal player. Like I've been saying, the numbers don't lie to you in that sense. Numbers do lie to you in a sense of you thinking that Jokic is a better basketball player than Joel Embiid. Let me not phrase it that way. I won't say that. A more dominant basketball player than Joel Embiid. The more valuable basketball player than Joel Embiid. No. First of all, you can go check Drew Hanlon's tweets. Go check them out. He'll tell you exactly. He has a thread of exactly why Joel Embiid is the MVP of the NBA. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. I'm not going to sit here and read off his stats that he discovered to you all. Go give him a follow. Go check out the thread. I'm looking specifically at last night's game, period, head-to-head. Joel Embiid, 34 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 11 for 20 from the field, 3 for 3 from the three-point line, 36 minutes. And let me see here. So he was a +2 in the game, in plus-minus last night. Joel Embiid, +2. Nikola Jokic, not saying he had a bad game. He had a great game. How about that? Embiid had a phenomenal game. Jokic had a great game. Jokic, 22 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists. Excuse me. 8 for 16 from the field, 1 for 3 from the three-point line, 34 minutes, right? Numbers are great. Close to a triple-double. He's approaching there. 13 rebounds. Shot 50% from the field, 33% from the three-point line. 8 assists. He's got his teammates involved. Nikola Jokic was a -9 last night. So I don't know if everybody just ignored it while they were watching the game, because maybe some people just don't even understand what they're watching. The Nuggets took the lead when Jokic came out of the game. The Nuggets won the game because Bones Highland closed the game out. I'll leave it at that. I mean, it's very simple to me. There's not really a conversation to be had there. Embiid outplayed Jokic last night. The Nuggets outplayed the Sixers last night. Simple as that. Yeah, I already said try Bassey, try Reed at backup center. Wish Jaden Springer was acclimated earlier. Obviously, you can't do that now. Is there anyone available to add to this bench? Hard for me to say that. James Ennis, that's a guy that I've, kind of been keen on. I don't even know what his situation is. I'm just fucking grabbing at straws right now with this bench. Got the Cleveland Cavs up next. So right now, just to give you a picture of where the Sixers are at currently, 41-26, the third seed in the East, as I mentioned. They're 3 games back of the 1 seed. Just to put it in perspective, as I said earlier, I'm not going for the 1 or the 2 seed. I don't want any chance of playing Brooklyn in the first round. To put that in perspective, Brooklyn is 3 games back of the 7 seed. And like I said, make sure you avoid 1 and 2 seed if you can. I'm not trying to play Brooklyn in the first round. So just really quick, we're going to take a look, because this is supposed to be a quick episode. I always spend way too much time on the Sixers. Real quick look at the Sixers versus Cavs, and then I want to take a trip around the NBA quickly, just recapping some of the big headlines across the league. But we got the Sixers and Cavs, which will be tonight at this point, if you're watching this Wednesday morning. So we got the Cavs hosting the Sixers in Cleveland. Cavs are currently 39-29, 6th place in the Eastern Conference. Sixers are 2-0 versus the Cavs so far this season. One of those games with Harden, one of them without. The Cavs are 4-6 in their last 10 games, averaging 108.1 points per game, shooting 46.5% from the field. Opponents are scoring 111.2 points per game against the Cavs. Sixers in their last 10, 7-3, averaging 115.8 points per game, shooting 44.9% from the field, and opponents are averaging 112 points per game against the Sixers. Important to note, no Jared Allen in this game. Obviously, no Colin Sexton and no Rajon Rondo. Jared Allen's a big name there. They have no matchup for Embiid without him, so that's going to be interesting. Embiid should dominate this matchup. Also important to note, Maxey had 33. Amazing game in that last matchup with Cleveland. Ultimately brought the Sixers back and willed them to a victory. Keys in this game for the Sixers. Matisse has got to stay out of foul trouble. Last few games, he's been in and out of foul trouble. It's causing him to miss a lot of time in these games. And he's obviously important to our defense. We need him in the game for the majority of it. He's going to be important against Darius Garland. He's got to stay out of foul trouble this game. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, Embiid's dominance. He needs to go ahead, dominate this game, 35-10. Do what you do, my man. There's nobody stopping you in this matchup. As I stated earlier, Harden, this should be the mantra moving forward. Aggressive, but smart. There's smarter ways of doing the things that he's doing right now. He's done a great job. Don't get me wrong. Harden has been more than impressive in his first couple weeks as a Sixer. There's always ways that you can be better, right? Ways that we can win every game. And then, the same thing as always now. Can we get any goddamn help from the bench? It cannot look like it looked last night. Otherwise, the Cavs will sit here and run us off the floor. They're a playoff team at the end of the day. I know there's no Jared Allen, no Colin Sexton. They're still a playoff team. They're still a quality team. They still got a lot of youth talent on that roster. Do not mess around with these guys. I think, obviously, the Sixers need to bounce back. They need to get this win on the road. I think they get it against the Cavs. 3-0 in the Cavs on the season. They'll have one more matchup after this one. MVP of the game, obviously, I think it's going to be Joel Embiid. They have no matchup for him without Jared Allen. X factor, as I mentioned earlier, Matisse Thybulle. We need him in the game. He's been very effective on offense at times with James Harden. Harden will find him, cut, hold other guys accountable on offense, but then also defending the best player. That's going to be Darius Garland. Matisse is going to be the X factor in this game. We need him to stay out of foul trouble. Finally, want to wrap up with a quick segment of a trip around the NBA. You know, I like to do this every episode, just touch on the few headlines around the league. The first one I got to start with, my man, Cat. You know, I say my man, I'm not some huge Cat fan. Don't get me twisted, but I have a lot of respect. I got a lot of love, and I got a lot of remorse for Cat because he's gone through some of the most tumultuous, occurrences, especially due to COVID. We all know what happened to his parents with the COVID virus, and just to see this guy's resilience, it's absolutely amazing. But let me get to the point. Cat, 60 points last night against the San Antonio Spurs. It's the highest of the season for anybody. 60 points, 17 rebounds, 3 assists, 19 for 31 from the field, 7 for 11 from the three-point line, and he was a plus 16 in this game. But the 7 for 11, he called himself the best shooter of all time. My God, is he approaching it. He's one of the best scoring big men that I've ever seen. And guess what? I watched Joel Embiid 82 games out of a year. So that's saying a lot. Cat is making some noise in the league this year. Timberwolves are really making some noise. Shout out to them. Just kind of riding that point of Cat. Hot month of scoring in the month of March. We had Jason Tatum. These are all scorers above 50 points in the month of March. Jason Tatum against Brooklyn, 54. Kyrie Irving against the Charlotte Hornets, 50. LeBron, back-to-back games. LeBron against Golden State, 56 points. LeBron against the Wizards, 50 points. KD versus the Knicks, 53 points. And then finally, Cat last night with 60. That's not it. Last night, there were some bangers. Yeah, there was a 60 burger. There was quite a few 40 burgers. I have 2 of them listed here to be specific. So we had Steph Curry and Draymond Green's return dropping 47 points in a 126-112 win over the Washington Wizards. And, man, the Wizards have been having some performances dropped on their head. Curry finished this game with 47 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 16 for 25 from the field, and 7 for 14 from the three-point line. That's right. Cat shot it better than Curry from the 3 last night, both with explosive games. The other guy I wanted to mention, big game last night, Trae Young drops 46 points versus Portland Trailblazers in a win. 46 points, 12 assists, 6 rebounds, 15 for 31 from the field, 5 for 14 from the three-point line. Shout out to Ice Trae. That man is a baller. Hey, I ain't got as much hate for Ice Trae because you know what? I can thank him for Ben Simmons being off my roster. And I can't thank him enough for that. So shout out to Ice Trae. Speaking of Ben Simmons, Steve Nash had mentioned he's hopeful that Ben Simmons will return within the regular season before the postseason starts. There's 14 games left. Brooklyn's the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, as I mentioned earlier. When's Ben coming back with that back soreness? Sixers game's done. He can come back at any time now. So we'll see how that plays out. But nonetheless, Nash, you'll get that guy soon enough. I just don't know if you even want him on the court. But we'll leave that at that. We'll see when Ben Simmons returns, but fuck that dude. And then just to wrap up, I wanted to shout out Greg Popovich, one of the best, if not the best NBA coach of all time. Definitely up there with the Phil Jacksons of the world, right? Greg Popovich becomes the NBA regular season wins leader of all time. 1,336 victories. And that came on Friday night. I forget who it was against, but nonetheless, a great victory. It's over the Utah Jazz, actually. So he gets his 1,336th victory over the Utah Jazz, makes him the all-time NBA regular season winning leader. And he passed one of his former colleagues who he worked under for the Golden State Warriors, passes Don Nelson to become the all-time winning coach in the regular season. So shout out to Greg Popovich. Whew! That was fast. I tried to wrap it up quick for you there. 45 minutes. Look at me. I got it done. Yes, as I mentioned, we will be back here Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Most likely we'll go live. I'll definitely let you know, but most likely we'll go live Sunday morning. But if not, I'll let you know, obviously. But nonetheless, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sunday morning, you'll catch Scotty Talks NBA right here on DSM Media. Before we go, obviously, just have to plug. Make sure you're following DSM Media on Twitter at DSM_media, on IG at DSM.DoSomethingMajor, on TikTok at DSM Media. And of course, you can find us on YouTube. Just type in DSM Media, look for the logo, click subscribe, hit like on all the videos, and make sure you're commenting on every show you get to catch. Make sure you're engaged and we're getting you involved in the show. That's the goal here. For myself, make sure you're following me on all social media platforms. I'm the same across the board at Scotty Drowned. For myself, for DSM Media, thank you all so much for tuning into this and enjoy the Sixers game tonight. Go Sixers. Dog out the fucking Cavs. 3-0 these motherfuckers. We got to bounce back. That's going to be it for this episode, guys. Peace.